Welcome, my darling pretties, to our Beyond the Dawn of Business podcast for pretty empowered female entrepreneurs. It's time to step into your power, pretties. Lift each other, support the squad, and choose a life filled with the autonomy and freedom to live your dreams. I'm your host, Dawn Beth, owner and founder of Beyond the Dawn digital business brand and agency. My coffee is hot and my eyelashes are on, so we are ready to go. Hello and welcome to this episode. Today I want to talk to you about the things that we're gonna leave behind at the end of this year. At the time of this recording, I try not to do this, by the way, actually put a time on the recordings because so many people come back and listen to them after they've gone out. You don't always listen to them on the same day. I mean, so many of you do, which is fabulous, and thank you, I adore you. But if you're listening to this and it's not December 2022, sorry. You can apply this to any end of year, and actually you can apply it to any significant milestone, so don't let it put you off. It's still handy. But speaking specifically to those of you that are, in this time frame, in this moment with me as this comes out, I want to talk about what we're going to leave behind in 2023. Now, you may have noticed that since we relaunched the podcast, I have probably been a little bit more stripped than ever. I am talking about some real stuff and I'm being brutally honest sometimes with the information that I'm providing. And that's because 2022 for me has been a catapult year. And when I say catapult, what I mean is the drawbacks of this year have been absolutely brutal. But the trajectory forward should be measured in light years because I have grown. And people who work with me love it when I talk about my growth because they know that they're going to learn from what has happened to me and that I'll be able to provide insight into this part of business, to this part of life, without them having to go through the pain that unfortunately I have had to suffer this year to, achieve the point where I've received that lesson. Regardless of what you believe, whether you have a religious aspect to your personality or whether you don't, whether you have a spiritual aspect to your personality or whether you don't, there is something to be said for at least experienced level personal growth. So if you're listening to me and I'm talking about the universe or I'm talking about anything like that and it doesn't resonate with you, perhaps you can just refer that back to experienced-based learning and personal growth in that way, because it's all relative, right? It's all relative. But there are some key things this year that I think collectively all of us could do with just leaving behind in 2022. Some of these things have been very prevalent always and would be relevant to any year. And some of them have been really specific to 2022 that have kind of taken rise. And I want to be taking these things and having the difficult conversations. I've mentioned this book before on my podcast and I will mention it again. I read this amazing book in August when we were out in Malta, and it was called No BS Leadership. And it is one of those books that I bought as a holiday read and then ended up furiously highlighting, bending corners, sticking post-it notes into, doodling and drawing and just writing all over the thing because it was like something had touched my soul and it was a message that I had needed at exactly that moment. Now, what happened after I read that book was that it unlocked some feelings in me that I'd already established, and this perhaps is something that needs a little bit of air that we could talk about more in our industries, is that occasionally we will learn a lesson and then we will fall out of alignment with that lesson and we will need for it to be repeated in a different way for us to truly get it. And that is what has happened to me a little bit this year. I have seen bad leadership. I have seen bad management. I have actively watched people treat other people in horrendous ways and ways that I just could not give any good reason for. And I actively made decisions to stay away from situations where open communication was not welcomed, where difficult conversations didn't happen, or where one person's perhaps pride or ego has everybody else around them yes-manning them for fear of being victim to some sort of, personal attack or trauma. And over the last 12 months, I have allowed myself to see the Hollywood in people. I don't know whether you do this. Maybe this is a moment of self-reflection for you. If you're the type of person who is quite hopeful, if you're the type of person that can see people's potential, occasionally what we can accidentally do is we can see a person's potential rather than who they truly are in that moment. Now, that's not to say that that person won't achieve a level of greatness or hit that level of potential, but it's not a given that that person is already at that point of potential or that they will reach it whilst you're, connected to them. There's no way for you to know that. And occasionally we can kind of put our rose-tinted glasses on and overlook the red flags that are there in looking for the potential of a person. In terms of leadership, in terms of being a thought leader, in terms of having a proper purpose, in terms of actually wanting to make a difference, and I'm talking about make a difference to people's lives, not your bottom line, I truly have been reminded this year of the worst side of entrepreneurial business, and not from an outside viewpoint either. What I will say about that is that it's been absolutely bloody marvellous. And although at some points it's felt like being kicked continually in the nuts by a revolving foot, it's also been incredibly fruitful. Not just for myself, but for my entire team, for the people who are around me. There has been a wealth of amazing learning. So one of the things that I think we should leave in 2022 is looking at the negative stuff like it's truly only negative. Let's look at the negative stuff because it does happen. We can't get rid of it. We're not going to pretend that it's not there. We're not going to deny it. We're not going to take it like a cork and try to sit on it so that it doesn't pop back up to the surface. We're not going to do that. Negative stuff happens. People aren't who they say they are. Sometimes people behave badly. Sometimes just random bad things happen to you. It could be your roof falls off your house or any of those things. External factors, things that are happening environmentally. I had a great conversation with my pro members in a group coaching this week where we were talking about the heating crisis, we were talking about the energy crisis, and we were having a little moan actually at the difficulty of deciding when to put our heating on and being really choosy with that in order to ensure that we're not putting ourselves in any financial difficulty. And one of the ladies, whilst we were talking, just openly kind of gave another perspective, which was that there are some people in the world right now without electricity, running clean water, heating, or any of that stuff. So to be sat having that moan, which we were having a moan, we're actually still sat from a really privileged position. Yeah, it's not great. It's not great. It's not ideal. Okay, it's not what we want. And, we feel like we've worked really, really hard, and we feel like we live in a country where these things shouldn't happen. And we feel like humanity should have moved on from these types of things occurring. And the truth of the matter is that we are where we are. We can control what we can control, and there's lots to be grateful for. There's lots to be grateful for. When we look at the negative things that have happened to us, there are lots of things that we can be doing to take good stuff from that. We can be looking at what we could control, what we couldn't control. This one's really, really been important for me as well. I'm a massive evidence reviewer. My ADHD has me documenting everything. And what's really good about that, my legal team adore me, is that you can't get anything past me. If we've had a conversation, if we've had an email, all of that stuff, I've kept everything. I've got everything. The receipts are there. They're in a file. They're in a file, they're in a cloud, and they're digitally backed up on about 3 different hard drives. Like, I do not allow anything to be removed. And that's because I know that my spicy brain won't retain it. I mean, sometimes it does, but I can't guarantee that it will. So I document everything for my own reference point, so that if I need to go back and remember what was said in a meeting or remember what was agreed in an email, I've always got that, and I can just very quickly put my hand to it, have my little digital resource library at my fingertips, and always be able to pop back. So that's good, because I've been able to look back and I've been able to review and figure out how much control I've had over some of the negative experiences that I've experienced this year. And what's really nice is that you can't deny straight up facts. You can't deny data. You'll notice that we have lots of fantastic merch coming out at the moment. We have reopened our merch shop. If you haven't got your female entrepreneur mug with my doodles on it, you do need to be having a look in the free group for that and get yourself a copy, because it is delightful to drink your morning coffee out of it, let me tell you. I've gone off piste. My point is that you can't actually deny things that are fact. Look for the data. What could you control? Measure everything. Be really clear. And that way you can soothe your soul over this is what I need to review in this situation. This is what I can learn from this situation. And this is the bit where I take radical responsibility. Pick out all the little golden nuggets and keep those, but only keep those. The rest of it belongs to other people, and it stays in 2022. So let's keep all of those things there. So I lovingly invite you to make yourself a little list of all the perceived negative things that have happened to you this year. I want you to find one lesson or one good thing that came from it. It might not be a direct thing. I was introduced to a horrendous person once, and I say horrendous quite lovingly. I don't mean to drag anybody. They just weren't my cup of tea. They just did not align with me in terms of core values and all of those good things. And I did not understand why I'd been kind of exposed to this person who was so chalk to my cheese. And then somebody that I was introduced to through them turned out to be one of the most amazing human beings, and has frequently worked with us in the agency and helped us out with things for our clients and been part of our team, and just been the most wonderful contact to have. So you might look at a negative situation and go, I can't find anything good from that. But who did you meet through that situation? Who did you connect with afterwards? Was there somebody that you found common ground with because you went through that experience? Where is the good stuff in the bad stuff? Because there's always a little bit something. The other thing I think we should leave in 2022 is the feeling like we can't be honest about what's really going on. Had a great conversation earlier on in the week where the people in the Zoom room admitted about their current mental health state. And that safe space where people could just be completely, truly honest about where they're at right now, it relieved an emotional and mental load. And I just wonder why we don't do that more often. The stigma is being removed and it is working. So again, perhaps be more honest about how you're truly feeling. Give yourself permission to do that and not feel ashamed about it. The other thing that I want to leave in 2022, and this one is going to be controversial for somebody who helps people with sales. And I've got to say, after this year, I'm really considering changing my titles. Because even though I am exceptional at sales, and my clients are exceptional at sales, and my clients make really, fantastic financial decisions, they make really fantastic financial months, quarters, years, whatever. So many people see the people that I work with just scaling at a ridiculous rate, which is wonderful, and just put everything on the money. But it's not about the money. And I've always used the term sales because that's what people are looking for. I know that you guys want sales when you listen to this. When I do podcasts on how you can increase your sales, they always do really well. But it's not about the sales. It's not just about the money. There's no shame in money. It's just energy. But energy comes in different forms, and there is a fantastic way for you to understand whether you are accepting pure energy, light energy, positive energy that is attached to finances, or whether you are receiving toxic energy through finances. You can tell the difference. So it's not all just money. It's very much about how you receive that money, whether that money feels good to you, and how you can change your perspective to make sure that you're receiving good money. Yeah? Not just good money as in large amounts, but like finances that come your way and feel bloody excellent, that do good things with you, and that you can then do good things with in the future with that same energy. And the reason why this is important, because we're all going through a situation right now where everybody, regardless of where you are on the financial wealth scale, everybody's going through something at the moment because the cost of living has gone up. So even if you're like myself and you have a successful business, everybody's looking at me and they're like, Dawnna, you're fine, you've got a successful business. Yeah, I have. And I'm really, really looking really, really grateful. But don't think for 1 minute that our heating bill in our studio hasn't gone up, because it has. Like, our overheads are high right now. I also have employed members of team who I adore, who are trying to navigate their earnings towards what it costs to live now. And as a company, we're trying to figure out how we can support them in bridging any gaps. There's no one helping us bridge that gap, by the way, but it's a responsible leader, as a responsible business owner, and as somebody who actually cares about the people who work with me, you have to look at it that way. So no matter where you are on that wealth scale right now, something's going on, and we know that. But there's massive increase in really desperate sales. And I started to sniff it out around July. I actually started to sniff it out around July, but it has gotten consistently worse as the year has gone on. So let's leave that in 2022. No more pushy sales, no more forcing. You're not a good enough person if you aren't. If somebody cannot afford your membership, if somebody cannot afford your course, it does not change that person's worthiness. There was an instance that I cannot speak about where we heard somebody say, if this person cannot buy into this thing, then they don't deserve the result. And the result was just baseline human survival. That's not cool, man. That's not cool. Human beings are on the other end of your sales process. Real people with real emotions, with real fears, with real situations, often with families, often with stress, often with pressure. Pointing at a pain point so that somebody recognizes that you can provide a solution is one thing. And in marketing, the way that I teach people to do that is soft, so soft. But actually creating a pain point that isn't really there, or giving somebody the indication that they are not worthy as a person, using shame language, or trying to create this feeling within that person that if they buy this thing from you, then that will be the thing that will make them whole. That will be the thing that will make them worthy. That's not cool. There has to be a moment where we look at this together collectively and we talk about ethics. And we recognize that on the digital space right now, there are a lot of toxic behaviors that are going to cause a lot of commercial trauma. Okay? People are not behaving on the other side very well either. So perhaps if we all came together and actually stopped forcing those sales, and I'm not talking about my clients here, I'm not even talking about 99.9% of the people that are listening to this podcast, but like, spread this message with me, guys. Spread it out far and wide for other people to hear it, for outside of our comfortable bubble. Let's get this out there, that it doesn't need to be that way, and that it's causing issues that don't need to happen. And then when people are concerned about how consumers are behaving, perhaps if we set that tone, we can reduce that also. So let's leave that in 2022. That forceful selling, that shameful selling. Nobody needs it. It's no good. Let's leave it there. The last thing that I want to leave in 2022, and I lovingly invite you to leave in 2022 too, is blaming other people for lack of results. You have to know how much of you is required to get the result that you need. You can't beat yourself up about it. You cannot. That's not good either. But you need to know that in order for you to change what you've got going on, you have to change it. If you do the same thing you've always done, you'll always get the same result, right? We speak about it all of the time. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to change. Sometimes we will try to change something. We'll put our foot in that pool. It's too cold. We step back. We decide not today. The problem is, quite often, we might go, oh no, the reason why I'm not getting in that pool is because that pool of water is too cold. When actually, the reason we're not getting in that pool is because we're uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. And when we decided to put our foot in that pool, we knew what temperature it was. We made the conscious decision we were going to take a dip. But once our foot was in there, that feeling of uncomfort came in. We chickened out. We jumped away. We got ourselves nice and cozy in a robe by a fire and decided it was the pool's fault. Was it the pool's fault? Did you know ahead of time that the pool was going to be that temperature? Are you aware? A lot of the time we are. So I don't want you to beat yourself up like, oh, actually I'm thinking about this now and I knew that it would be like that, and then I blamed the situation so that I didn't take the blame because I'm scared of taking the blame. That's a different podcast as well. And just look at that, okay? And the reason I want you to look at it, because I want you to walk into the next year, the next season of your life, the next chapter, whatever you want to frame it as. And I want you to recognize that you have control over the walk to the pool. You have control over putting your foot in the water. So rather than jumping in and then going, oh, wait a minute, this is the exact temperature I thought it would be, but I don't want to admit that I knew this would be uncomfortable, so I'm going to blame the temperature, I'm going to blame the pool, jump out, it's not my fault, bury my head in the sand, do my ostrich bit, pretend like I didn't know because that's safer for me. I want you to be aware of that going into the next year. Let's leave that in 2022. Let's make conscious decisions. Let's bring the subconscious, default autopilot behaviors into our conscious before we even decide to put our flip-flops on and walk to the pool. Let's be thinking 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of those decisions and strategically reminding ourselves when we get in the pool, yes, this pool is blooming freezing, but I knew it would be. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but I need to sit in it a bit because it's in this uncomfort, one, that I have committed myself to, and 2, that it's going to give me the end result. Right, now that I'm starting to climatize, I'm going to swim in this pool. I'm going to get the result that I came here for. And I'm actually going to complete and finish this mission, this task, this goal this desire, this project, and see it through to the end. We can't keep dilly-dallying, skipping in and out of situations, skipping in and out of possibilities. It's time for us to take commitment to a new level and stop blaming other things for the result and blaming other things for us skipping away from getting the result. What part do we play in it? What can we preempt? What do we already know? Let's be really honest, if not with each other, then with ourselves. Because it's within that self-authenticity that real growth can be achieved. Let me know in the free group, what else are you going to leave in 2022? I would love to know what's not making the cut for the following year. There's a couple of things that I'm also leaving in 2022. I'm forgiving some people who have never apologised, but I'm going to forgive them anyway. I am going to leave behind the stress and the worry of some of the catapult level growths I've had this year, because I'm growing into the woman that I've imagined for years and years and years, and I can feel her. She's already here. So I'm going to leave some of that behind. I'm going to leave behind some of my self-doubt. I'm going to leave behind some of the horrible things that my inner critic says to me. Think about these things. What are you not taking into the next year? What are we going to dump in 2022 and leave behind? I would love to know what you're leaving behind in 2022. Let me know in the free group or comment on the posts on social. You can find me on all of them, and as always, I'm sending mad love to all of you. Let's just walk into this next season of our lives with our heads held high and a new opportunity, a new possibility, and a new hopefulness for what's on the other side of that veil. If you're loving our Pretty podcast, come on over to Social Pretties, our online safe house and sisterhood community. It's a safe space where female entrepreneurs connect and thrive in a warm, welcoming fold of pretty amazing women. You'll find an easy redirect in the description, and I can't wait to see you in there. And depending on where you're listening right now, we would love it if you would click subscribe or follow so that you can be the first to know when our new podcasts come out.